Hey everyone, good afternoon. Invest with me here. This is Josh. I did want to do an impromptu update here because a lot has been going on in the market the last couple of days. Mainly the inauguration, everything surrounding that, all the laws that have been put in place. We've had a bit of a meme coin rally. We've had some infrastructure deals, executive orders, nothing for crypto on that front, but a lot of other goings ons, as they say. So we're going to cover this today. I want to cover Hood briefly. I have some updates there that I shared today um, in the Twitter world, or I guess it's X now. I can still never get that right. Leading off here, I did want to start with the Schwab earnings. I mentioned this a while back that people should keep an eye on this coming out the 21st, which was this morning. It might be too little for you to read here, but they basically beat across the board. Revenue rose 20% year over year to 5.33 billion, beating the consensus of 5.19. Pretty good beat there. Net interest revenue rose 19% year over year. Clients' daily average trades are up 22% year over year. I mean, you can go on and on. Net income up 44%. You're going to see a lot of the same data coming out of Robinhood. We've already talked about this in previous videos at you know ad nauseum now, and I've posted a million times about it on X for anyone that actually listens. Since starting at 17 bucks, now we actually closed right on 50 today, which is wild. That we have a daily close at 50, above 50. Considering where we were just last week, I think we started the week in the high 30s and even had some intraday moves down to around 37 earlier in the week last week. But that's behind us now. Schwab, again, a pretty good indicator. It's a bit of a canary for Hood, but we did expect that. So I don't think that's anything new there. Let me just switch over screens here and show you really the new data that I'm excited about. I mean, this was confirmation of what I already knew to be true about the uh, trading space. Schwab and Hood have a lot of overlap and working in the same area. So what's good for one is good for the other. And I think Hood's numbers will be even crazier just because they're smaller and they're growing faster. So they'll be pretty exciting when they do finally release earnings on the 12th of February. The second update was the Hood crypto updates that I roll out every so often. I used to do them daily, but it hadn't really been, as you can see, from right before Christmas until really this past week. There nothing had been going on, so I hadn't been sharing updates. But with the new meme coin mania and listing of Trump coin, we did have a pretty big spike here. Um, let me make this bigger, see if I can expand it. Nope, that doesn't work. We did have a pretty big spike here in the update based off of them rolling out the Trump coin, which was pretty exciting. They were able to do that really quickly. To put it in a little bit of perspective, the rollout, Trump coin was listed where you could trade it on Moonshot for like 2 days um, before Robinhood was able to roll out. And they also kind of exciting there is they were able to beat Coinbase to the punch. Coinbase just rolled out Trump on their platform today. So full 24 plus hours, Robinhood was able to get there first. And crypto, that's supposed to be Coinbase's thing. Um, but it's really not. Robinhood has shown that they can move quickly within the space. They have better, their take rate's lower for individual investors than Coinbase is by nearly half still. Even though Robinhood has been inching them up slowly, they could double their take rate on crypto, which would coincidentally double revenues. If you're wondering how they can keep this growth up and still be competitive with Coinbase and potentially better if they're able to continue on the trajectory they are as far as developing crypto on their platform. I think that's going to be a big thing for them. But you can see here, I mean, it's pretty obvious when they rolled this out. We had a day, 2 days since the rollout now, and it's a pretty big spike. This data was pulled earlier in the day today, so it might actually be a little bit higher with the rest of the trading day today in crypto. But if you're just looking back at December, and December numbers were massive, mid December, we were seeing, the at the time all-time highs in Bitcoin. And now we're seeing this move in price times volume. So this is again, if you're new to the stream or you haven't seen this before, this is aggregated price times volume. So this is all of the cryptos traded on Robinhood platform up until the listing of Trump coin, which I added in here just for these couple of days. Now, granted, I think all of the other crypto assets that are being traded on Robinhood were also up because of this volume coming in to trade Trump coin. A lot of people were probably buying Solana and then swapping it because Trump coin is on the Solana network, which led Solana to crash because there were so many people coming in. But all of that being said, I mean, it's just mega bullish for Hood because that means they're getting a lot of traffic on their platform too. And traffic and volume leads to dollars for them um, for revenue. And that's what you want to see as a shareholder. Will this continue? I don't know. I'll keep track of it until the end of the month. But if it does, and I think it will, because there's a lot going on in crypto right now with Trump taking office. Anytime he mentions it, one of his kids mention it. They keep rolling out these meme coins. It's going to keep volumes up as people get excited about buying these things with the hope of making a whole lot of money in a very short period of time. And it's all, again, it's all going to benefit Robinhood. Speaking of Moonshot, they did a partnership with them today, actually, where you can now just link your Robinhood and transfer directly over on Moonshot to buy some of these shitcoins. So I think that's going to be good for Hood. It's going to bring in, the trading isn't happening there. They're buying it on Moonshot, but people are bringing money onto the platform so that they can make that switch. That easy transaction from Robinhood to Moonshot to buy the stuff that they want to buy that they can't buy, elsewhere. So it's pretty exciting. I just think this will lead to a strong guidance. I think it's the big takeaway for me is if this continues in through the end of January, early February, because they do report early February, it's going to be a boon to their guidance. Like we already knew their revenues, their EPS, and everything was going to be amazing. Revenues close to a billion, maybe just over a billion. We'll see. Depends on how much they make off of net interest and what kind of rates they were getting there over the quarter. But even without that, like the big sell off thing that could have happened is if on the earnings call you're like, yeah, we had a great quarter, but it's not something that we see as sustainable. It's going to be a one-off quarter for us. We expect Q2 based off of the data we've seen so far in January that these numbers will be lower in the following quarter. I don't think they're going to say that. I think if this continues through the beginning of February, as they report on the 12th, which is only 3 weeks away now, just a little over 3 weeks. I think the crypto market can keep it up until then. And I think Robinhood, with the increasing take rates, they just said they're going to have more or less they're going to have a base rate of 0.63% for their smart contracts. And I think that's it's going to be the lowest. I think with the Trump coin at one point when they first put it on platform, their take rate was like 1.63%, which is more or less what Coinbase charges you when you transact on their platform. Which that's a lot. In Q1 of 2024, Robinhood was charging like 0.3% on every trade you made. So you're talking about a 5x there in revenue per trade in their largest segment, which is crypto. Um, so this is very bullish for me. I don't know what else to say. I can keep going on and on about what I'm seeing here, but I think they'll guide strong. I think they'll project out with the new administration, with regulatory changes, with this new crypto czar coming in to give clear regulation. I think that's all bullish for Hood. and I don't think that stops anytime soon, in my opinion. Well, let's look at the chart real quick. All right. So this is the Hood chart. This is the daily since they IPO'd. You can kind of see where we are here at 50 bucks. We got a high of, what was it today? 50.74, 50.70, somewhere up in here. We're still below the initial push post IPO, which is kind of crazy. You say, well, Hood's up a lot. Well, it's really not up very much over the last 4 years if you look at it on a longer term perspective. Everyone's really just looking at the last year, but you look at a 4-year time frame, Hood's gone nowhere since IPO. Which leads me to believe we've got a lot more to go here. And I just wanted to show kind of this comparison. I think I showed it on one of my earlier videos. I've talked about it on Twitter between Palantir and Hood, and I realize they're completely different segments, and it doesn't have to mean anything, but the setups look so similar. So here's Hood. You can see kind of this megaphone pattern that was expanding, that it was stuck within pretty much from November of 2023 until it broke out in November of 2024. And then it consolidated just above the upward sloping trend line. And then it's really started to take off since then. And then Palantir, you'll notice something very similar. Um, it is in the same pattern, the same megaphone that it traded in over about a year-long period, broke out, kind of consolidated just above it, and then it started to run. Palantir had a few other things going for it at the time, like S&P inclusion, NASDAQ 100. Hood, I think, will get S&P inclusion Q1 of this year, which, hey, we're here now. So maybe in the next couple of months when they do the rebalancing, we'll see Robinhood, because the market cap is also pushing 50 billion. They already met all of the requirements, but usually the market cap being above 50 billion really, it puts you high up on the list of names to get in. And I think they could use a fintech finance name. There's no one in that space that's listed on the S&P. I think it would be a good diversity hire. We don't do that anymore. But for the S&P, and I'm gonna flip back to Hood. We saw Palantir really went bananas, and it had the AI narrative, but Hood has the crypto narrative, and anyone who was around in 2021 knows that that narrative can be very strong. What would it take to see this kind of move? Well, it's already happening right now. Um, does it go to 70? Does it go to 80? Palantir topped out around 84, which ironically is the intraday all-time high on Robinhood from just after IPO. Rhymes, whatever, history, the quote. But we'll see. I could see some pullbacks. Palantir really didn't do any pulling back until it was over 70. Once it started taking off, it was a bit of a squeeze. And that's another thing with Hood. They're starting to unlock the higher level on options. But right now, a lot of options are going into the money. So you can't have this thing happen where you get a gamma squeeze where as the price moves up, more options, call options go into the money. People exercise those options into shares. Shares have to be delivered, which just pushes the price higher, and then people continue. It's like get to a point where it kind of peters out, and people stop exercising because the price is just so ridiculous. I don't think the price is that ridiculous here where we are now. The PE is 89, but that's based off of where we are to date. Earnings per share are expected to be around 50 cents, it's 40 to 50 cents, but I like to say 50 just because it's easier math. If you push that forward 4 quarters, you get, 2 for EPS annually. And if we're trading at 50 bucks, you divide by 2, that gives you a price to earnings of 25, which is actually lower than Schwab's price to earnings right now. And Hood is expecting 30 to 40% growth this quarter. And if they guide anything like that going forward, or just have a positive earnings call, I think that's really the only thing that could derail this now. And I don't think it's going to because crypto is still looking strong, and I think it'll continue to be strong under Trump. Uh, this will push higher, in my opinion, after earnings. If we get a pullback, I'm definitely going to buy it. It would be the craziest thing ever if this thing sold off for whatever reason after earnings. Um, and this is all barring some kind of crazy macro event. I know everybody's worried about tariffs. I think there will be some tariffs, but the market will get over it as long as they're marginally reasonable. You know, Trump says things like 50% tariff on China, 100% tariff on China if they don't bring TikTok back, which sounds insane and it kind of is. But I don't think it's going to spook the market enough. Looking at a macro level, tariffs in and of themselves don't have to be bad. I think the things that really matter that people are already starting to forget about because of the Trump inauguration and some of the things he's saying is CPI. At the end of the day, it's CPI. If it stays cool, even if it's sticky, the high twos, low threes, and unemployment stays strong, and GDP is still coming at 3% every quarter, nothing else is going to matter. Those are the only things that are going to matter. Um, and I think the world and the market generally are going to be fine. Uh, there are issues in China, outside of war starting up with them. Yeah, we're actually winding down wars right now with Israel, and then hopefully Trump can do something about the war um, in Ukraine with Russia. And if he can, that's just another catalyst for the market. And speaking of catalysts, Hood has several this year. They have a crypto conference. They have the gold conference again. I think they have a couple of more. I think they have 4 total this year. That'll be pretty big deals where they can release things, roll out new events, new news on what they're doing, what they will be doing for the platform. I think futures is going to be big. People aren't even talking about futures right now because what's going on in crypto and what Hood's been able to do. But we still have the potential for Super Bowl contracts, actual futures contracts on the Nasdaq and S&P 500 still haven't happened, and those are really large take rates for Robinhood that will add to their bottom line. There's just too many good things to be panic selling your gains, as weird as that sounds. People have a really hard time holding winners. I am guilty of that myself, which is partly why I went out to 2026. I originally had February calls, but I've already made a lot of money on those. So I sold them. I sold shares too, and I took leaps at the 70 strike. And again, it sounds crazy. You're like 70, it's already up 100 and 200%, and you're going to buy a strike that's another 50% out of the money just to break even. Well, if the EPS annually is 2 and it's trading at 70, that still puts the PE at what, 35, which is not very high for a company who's growing 30 to 40%. It could be double that. I mean, it's 89 right now. For Hood to trade at 89 with an 89 PE, with the earnings that they're going to have, it would have to be like, I don't know, $160 or something crazy to keep that PE after, if they continue to have the earnings that they're having now. That's the price it would have to be to account for their EPS going up quarter over quarter. So that's where things stand with Hood. I did just want to touch on where I think it would go from here, what I'm doing. I'll hold those leaps. I'll keep adding to them. Again, there's the 70 Cs, so the 70 calls for January 2026. Any pullbacks, I could see it pulling back here to the breakout level. It's at like around $44. I think Bitcoin would have to poop its pants for that to really happen, which could, like if it fell back to 90 for some reason, I could see this pull back into the mid to low 40s to retest this area. And, if you're kind of coming back down here somewhere over the next couple weeks or retest this trend line, you know, that doesn't scare me. As long as we're holding this uptrend, I think it'll keep pushing higher. And then we'll have so many good news type events, whether it's conferences, their earnings, anything they roll out, like the announcement with Moonshot today, um, futures contracts, any of those things are going to be good for Robinhood. We already know the earnings are good, so there's nothing to worry about there. I was trying to think, is there anything else that I wanted to share? We talked about the Trump coin and how they were able to roll that out. Uh, we talked about how the volume's trending up. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. I didn't really want to go on forever, but I kind of did. Sorry. But yeah, that's my outlook. I've been teasing like Hood 100. I don't know. If EPS is 2 and it's trading at $100, that puts the price to earnings ratio at 50. Is 50 crazy? If it's growing 35%? No. That would actually, you know, sound pretty reasonable for a growth company in the fintech space. It's still a tech company. I think people forget that sometimes. Um, and they want to bemoan, it's just the user interface. Well, Hood does a lot of stuff really well. Um, and they're just continuing on that path of doing things really well, and being innovative with how they do it. I know it's a long ways off, but after they roll out futures contracts, they get the trade PMR deal done. We start maybe getting AI financial advisors, because they have the Pluto deal too, Pluto AI, that they haven't really talked about much. These are all things that they could talk about this year at any of their conferences too, by the way. So when those events do occur, you're going to see a spike in price. So my guess is this right here will continue to look like this if macro holds up. I think this is where we're going, personally. I think we'll get to 60 now that if we break and hold 50, I think we'll just push up into 60 because it's the next mental level. Maybe get some chop at 60. Um, if we get S&P inclusion in a couple of months, why not 80? I mean, if earnings are still strong, the crypto volumes are still doing what they're doing, I don't see that stopping. These meme coins and stuff now with the deregulation, going to keep rolling out. People are going to keep being excited. If you're worried about this and you're thinking about selling it, I think you're just overthinking it. I think you're overthinking it. You are overthinking it, especially if you have an entry down here somewhere in the 20s, or even the 40 area was a good entry. But damn, if you got in down here, I mean, it would just hold it. Where do you think it's going to be in 10 years? Probably over $100. You know, their market cap is 45 billion right now. Well, Schwab's is 145 billion. So that's a 3x from here. So it would have to be trading up close to, I think, $160 for Hood to have the same market cap as Charles Schwab. Now, granted, Charles Schwab has way more money, assets under custody, but Hood is running past them right now in new customers and new assets on platform, in that, as far as a percentage growth, like they're running away from Charles Schwab. I think the younger crowd and middle-aged people are starting to get, especially if crypto and deregulation continues, they're only going to be more gravitation, like they're only going to gravitate towards Hood even more. And then with the wealth transfer, when the boomers start to pass away, people are just going to bring it onto the platform that they're already using. They're not going to keep their dad's platform. If they're already using Hood, they're going to roll over those IRAs. They're going to roll over those 401ks into Hood, and that's just going to boost AUC even further. To me, the comparison would be investing in BlackBerry versus Apple. Schwab to me is BlackBerry. It's still very viable right now, but Robinhood is Apple, and they're eating their lunch. They're going to keep eating their lunch. I don't know. There's a lot some of these other platforms can do about it. Like IBKR is probably fine, because they're international. Weeble's probably fine for what they offer. But I think domestically here in the US, it's going to be Robinhood. And then once they do expand to other territories, they're going to start taking market share too. That's the other thing. They're not even they're in the UK, and that's it, other than the US. So they have so much more room to grow if they execute right, and they keep doing the things that they're doing now, and they keep doing it well, and keep the customers, the youthful customers that they have on their base, as their base. Then I don't even know where this could end up, honestly, 10 years from now. But it's going to be a hell of a lot higher than $50 unless we have some cataclysmic world event, at which point it doesn't matter what you're invested in. Right. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to my spiel. Just wanted to update you on the crypto volumes that I was seeing. Looks very good. Wanted to point out the earnings from Schwab today, which also looked very good, and kind of solidifying my decision to roll into Leaps. I have 70% cash still because I sold everything. And I just have I bought 45 of those 70 Cs at 767, and I'm just going to keep nibbling between now and earnings, and I'll probably save some in case we do get an earnings sell off, and I'll just buy that dip with it so that I'm not panicking. It's another thing to remember: keep some cash through earnings if you're going to hold. Yeah, same for shares, and if it does pull back, just add. You'll feel a whole lot better about everything um, if that does happen. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Hope y'all have a good evening. And I'll talk to you later.